In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Python's package manager Poetry in order to manage your project's dependencies, package your project to make it easily shareable, and version your Python package. With that said, let's dive in. So the first thing we're going to do is actually install Poetry. So we're going to open up command line or terminal. I just installed a fresh version of Python, so Python 3.13, and I have a pretty much empty yeah, dependencies right now, so I don't have any like anything else except pip3 auto remove for convenience. So here we're now going to install pipx. So this is the first step. This is in my opinion, the easiest way to install Poetry on your system. So pip install pipx, and then once you have that installed, you can say pipx install Poetry. As a side note, if you happen to have any issues that involve pipx using the wrong Python version on your computer, you might want to uninstall it and then run pip cache purge and then reinstall pipx to solve that problem. I had that recently, just a side note. So now that we have installed Poetry, we should be able to say Poetry here and see the list of commands. Right, so if you're seeing that, then that's good. If not, there might be additional troubleshooting, and you can let me know in the comments, and I should be able to help. So now we're going to create a project. So we're just going to call this Poetry Test Project, like so. Right click, open that up with your favorite editor. I use Cursor because of the AI integration and interface, and then we can start our project. So first, I'm actually going to write my script here. So this script is just going to go to my website's homepage and pull the h1 tag from there. So zachplochet.com, import requests, and then beautiful soup, like so. Get the h1, get the h1 tag text and print. Boom. And that's the script. So if I say here pymain.py or Python, but on Windows you can also use just py, no module named request, and that's true because if I pip freeze, there's nothing here. So at this point, oh well, there's actually now there's pipx dependencies, so there's that. So now we're going to create the virtual environment for our project using Poetry. So the first step here is you're going to want to run the following: poetry init-n. This creates the pyproject.toml file, which manages the versioning and details for your project as far as a package. So now you'll need to do this in every project unless you use the poetry new command to create a project, but I pretty much never do that just because my workflow involves creating the folder first and then opening up with the code editor and having it in the path already. Either way, so that's one way to do it. There is another way where you don't put the put the -n, so poetry init, just like so, and it gives you sort of a CLI walkthrough in order to add all of those details to your project, and then it makes the thing. However, this way, in my opinion, takes a bit longer, and I think poetry init-n just lets you get started a lot faster, so I prefer that way. So with that said, let's see this again. Poetry init-n. And now we can start adding dependencies to our project. As we can see in the folder here, dependencies is empty. So we're going to first add requests. Actually, we'll add both of them. So poetry add. So instead of pip install that you might be used to, we're going to say poetry add now. So poetry add requests and bs4. So first it's creating a virtual environment to install it into, and then it installs it. So if we look at our Py project here, we can see our dependencies that we installed directly, so requests and bs4, and as well as their versions. So if we say pip freeze right now, we're actually not inside of our Poetry or our virtual environment. So in order to do that, we need to run the following. And actually there's two ways of doing it, but I'll show you the more convenient one. So what used to be my default, or it still is, but it takes a little bit more configuration right now, is running Poetry Shell, and that would just log you into the project. But as we can see here, since Poetry 2, the shell command is not installed by default, you can use envactivate, and then you can also install the shell plugin, which I wish they just didn't make it not the default in general, but that's just me. So the envactivate, if you run this, all this does is just give you the command in order to actually like, it gives you the command to actually run it. So like, if you do this, like, then you're in the virtual environment, but in Poetry Shell it just does it for you automatically. So I'm going to deactivate that, and then we're going to add the Poetry Shell plugin to our global poetry environment. So we're going to say poetry self add, and I believe it's poetry plugin shell, like so. Yep, so that's installing everything there. If Poetry Shell's already working for you, then you might just already have it installed. Right, so now if I write Poetry Shell, it should work. Great. So if I say pip freeze here, we should see the dependencies for... Right, beautiful soup, requests, all of that good stuff. Now, for the sake of example, I'm going to deactivate this. So we're currently outside of our virtual environment, but if you want to see the dependencies for the current project anyways, you can run the following: poetry show. So this actually does show the details for your current packages, but this shows all of the dependencies. If you only want to see the ones that you have, like, that you directly added, you can say poetry show-t, and that only shows the direct ones, so BS4 and requests, which is pretty neat. Now, to actually run this script and make sure that it is working, there's two ways. So one, you can log into the virtual environment and then run the script. So poetry shell py main.py or python main.py. Wait a second. Oh, okay, so right, in this case what happened is the actual, or the better command to exit the virtual environment in Poetry is to use exit instead of deactivate. So exit, and then, because that's why it's saying this, virtual environment already activated. So now Poetry Shell, and then we run the script py main.py. Boom, and now it works. So that's the first way. The other way is to write poetry run python main.py, like so. And then it works. And actually, I wonder if we can just poetry run main.py. Right, so that also worked because I have on my system the default opener for Python files to be the Python executable. So that's why that worked. So those are two ways. Personally, I pretty much always log into the shell. Also, in VS Code, we still see the squiggly lines here. So on your code editor, if you're still seeing this and are using VS Code or Cursor, you need to change your Python environment to fit this. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to search specifically for this one, which is Poetry Test Project. Poetry Test Project, right here. Click this, and now those squiggles are gone, and we can find our package. Now, with that said, that actually did take a little bit of configuration, so I'm going to set that up right now, or just show you where that setting was. So I'm going to open up my settings with Control comma, go to the JSON file, go to the bottom here, and so in order to get my interpreter like list to work with poetry, I had to add the following settings. So you can just pretty much screenshot this, or I can leave it in the comments, whatever's more convenient for you. Just let me know if you need that. But yeah, Python poetry path poetry, Python dot venv path, and then to this specific one. So on, at least on Windows, so users or C users, your username, app data, local, PyPoetry, cache, virtually envs, and then so this is actually to the wrong one, default interpreter path. Right, so this is an outdated one, so I'm just gonna change this to 3.13 now. Bleep. And that should still be fine. This was just because of a weird cursor bug that I was experiencing. But this one technically you shouldn't need. At the same time, if you're opening other projects and it's defaulting to what, like, a specific project's virtual environment, this is what you set. That was a weird bug I was experiencing. Either way, let's pick the right one again. Go back. Bleep. And now, currently, our script is working. Oops. 1 second. Okay. So, next, here's what we're going to do. We're going to now actually create a package, a shareable package that we're going to install into another project. So, we have our stuff here. Now, we're going to turn this into a package. So, instead of what we have here, we're just going to say, I don't know, define h1 getter, h1 printer. So this is going to be our function here. So get the h1 tag from any URL and print it, like so. And we're going to package this, which means we're going to put it in a folder. I'm just going to call this easy requests because why not? That can be the name. Py, and then say printers. So we have this here, h1 printer. I'm going to import that here. So from .printers, import h1 printer. Like so. And just to test it, I'm going to write main.py here, from easy requests import h1 printer, put my URL h1 printer like so, and then we're going to run the file. So run it. Perfect, it still works. Great. Now that we have this, there's a few things we need to do to actually get this to work. With another package. So one, the name of your poetry project, it needs to match exactly the easy requests here. So we're going to change this, easy requests, like that. You can add the description, readme. So funny enough, in order for this to work on another package, this does need to exist. So you do need to create a readme. I can show you what that looks like, and then I'll show you what happens if you don't have it. So readme.md. Like, it just has to exist, really, so you can add whatever, but easy requests, like so, and then it should work. But for the sake of right now, I'm going to not have that, just to show you what happens. So we created this whole project. We're actually going to create a Git repository for it right now. So git init, like so, git add everything, git commit -m initial commit. Cool. And then we're going to create the repository. So gh repo create easy requests -source is the current directory. Whoops. -r is the origin. -r is remote, and then it's, I believe, just /public and then /push, and that should be it. Yep, so that got created. I'm going to say gh browse in order to view that, and that is all done with GitHub CLI, by the way. So let's see, we have this easy requests, all of this jazz right here. And now, hypothetically, because it's public, we should just be able to easily install this in another project we're working on our system and have it work. So let's do that. Time to create a new project. So this is going to be poetry project 2. Right click, open that up with your code editor. Go here, poetry init-n, the same as before. And now we're just going to add the dependency directly. So check this out. Poetry add. And in order to add this one, we need to say git plus and the URL to our project. So that was actually, let's see, right here. So we had the remote, add that here. And it's going to attempt to install it, and you see it's making the virtual environment. Let's see if it works. Right, so it actually failed because we didn't add the README. So let's add the README back here. README easy requests. The easy. Well, yeah. Let's see what the AI says. Yeah, sure, why not? So git add git commit -m add readme git push, and now we're going to try to install it again. And this time it actually worked. Let's try to run this. So main.py, so from, or actually import easy requests, and then say, oh yeah, there it is. And then easy requests dot h1 printer. See if it works here. Poetry run main.py, and it works. All right, cool. So now that we have that, to make updates here, let's say you wanted to add another, I don't know, you wanted to add something to your API and then say h2 printer. So easy request.h2 printer on the same page. I'm curious what they are actually. So we want to add h2 printer now. So let's go ahead and do that just to show you the sake of example and why it won't work at first. So define h2 printer URL print all h2's h2 tag texts in a list format. Boom, boom, and that's it. So we added this. We're going to update it here. Git commit dash, or sorry, git add, git commit -m, add h2 printer. Or actually, I made a mistake. We also need to import it. Boom. Add h2 printer. Git add, git commit -m, add h2 printer. There we go. So git push. And now you might think that that should just work automatically. Poetry, or sorry. Oh, by the way, if a package does update, you can run the following command and it will update your version here. So poetry update. And it's going to try to update easy requests. Right, so it says it updated. Let's see if it actually works. So poetry run main.py. Okay, so actually that worked even without the versioning. I actually thought that wouldn't work, so it looks like it did. But let's say you did want to update it anyways, or update the version at least. So what you would do in that case is the following. So you see this version right, not there, in the PyProject.toml here. If you actually want to manage this part, you could say the following command. So poetry version. If you write that, you see the current version of the project. If you want to version it easily, it has a few commands to help with that. So there's poetry version patch. So that is for like a small bug fix or something of that nature. There is poetry version minor, which is if you sort of added a non-major feature and you just made like a minor update. And then poetry version major, which is a major update of your project when it's like all ready, polished, all of that stuff. Yeah, that's when you would add that. So that is a easy way of doing that, and then you can push it, git add, git commit -m, update project version, git push. And like, we didn't really make any additional changes to the actual code, but you can still run poetry update and it should recognize and do the update. And if you write poetry update again, right, so it sees that there's nothing to install or update here. Yeah, and as a sort of bonus thing here, let's go to the project once again. And let's say you actually want to use a different Python version. So in order to do that, there's a few things. One, oops, exit here. Okay, just open up a new terminal. So, in order to see the current virtual environments you have, you can go ahead and write the following: poetry env list. And, oh, that's actually strange. Poetry. Oh, because we're logged in by default. Hold on. Let me put this back to... let me put the interpreter back to just the default. So 3.13. And then open that up again. And then say poetry env list. And it actually should be there. Poetry shell. Oh, that's weird. I don't know where that went. Okay, poetry env list. Okay, that, I don't know what happened there, and I can't really explain it. So, it might be a cache thing. But either way, ideally you can just list your virtual environments like that. But if you did want to switch environments, we're going to type exit here to a lower version. You can go to your TOML file, and then let's say I want to use 3.12. You can either put it on 3.12 or 11. And if on your system your default like Python command here goes to like the latest version, you can write the following, and poetry should work with that version, assuming you have it installed on your system, at least on Windows. So poetry env use 3.12 or whatever the version is, and boom, now we made a version with 3.12. So I wonder, poetry shell. So I think, oh yeah, okay, there you go. Poetry env list. Right, so that one's activated. So let's see. Exit poetry env use 3.13. Right, so then it just uses the one that already exists. Poetry env list. And it's there. Now, the last thing is if you're not actually building a package and you still want to use poetry in a pretty much easy fashion. So let's say you're building a Django project or something where you don't really care about like all the packaging stuff and all of this. Or you don't care to like share the project. Like the project is the final like result essentially. In order to do that, there's a very simple flag you can add here that is just package mode false. Now in this project it doesn't make sense because we built a Python package, but if you're building a Django project, this does make it slightly easier and you don't have to think about the name and like a few other things here. And there are things that it saves you from, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. So hopefully that was a good enough tutorial for you guys to understand how to start working with poetry instead of using pipenv because, or you know, virtual environments and just Python alone. Because in my opinion, poetry does make it a lot easier. And while there are, I would say, like a very few packages where it doesn't quite work all the way like you would like, It is a very useful tool in most cases. So, with that said, that is this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you like the content, subscribe. My name is Zach Plochet. I teach people how to code for a living, and, well, now I'm making more YouTube videos, so, about other stuff. So, we'll see how things go. Either way, thank you for watching. Bye for now. Beep. Beep.